All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, I do see the chat is working. Always a good indicator. Sigil Stone 17 singing all by myself to himself until Mrs. Tag joined in and said here for the show. Now they're talking with each other. Claudius 1964, the end of slavery. Yes, we will be talking about Juneteenth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. For more information, of course, watch Razorfist's excellent video about Abraham Lincoln. In fact, I'm thinking I might rewatch it tonight. I really like it. It's probably the best thing that he's made, and I've watched his Michael Jackson material several times. Anyway, I'll make sure we're actually live in a moment. A bridge too far. Happy Who My Daddy Teenth. Could that be a racial reference? Kind of a little bit like using the term people of color, I suppose. Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, I have a feeling that he might actually be familiar with my content. I've been talking about that for years, how people of color is basically colored people with one extra word. And he was pointing that out basically yesterday. And he's 37, so he's definitely in the core demographic that I happen to cater to. So good on you, Vivek. I have a feeling that you're, if not necessarily a fan of Clankdom, at the very least aware of some of the content. Of course, I was retweeted by Donald Trump once, so that doesn't surprise me anyway. We are live on Rumble. All of our tabs are working. It's a good day. I'll probably keep it a little bit on the shorter side today. It's still fucking hot out and humid. It's muggy today. It's not like the dry heat that it has been for, some weeks before. Still haven't gotten any rain, unfortunately. And keep hoping. I'm thinking maybe I should study up on rain dances from some occult novella from the 1800s and see what I can conjure up. Because literally, if you look out front, this is a swampy country. Half of it's below sea level. It's filled with canals and shit. It's one of the major agricultural countries in the whole world. But when I look out on the Autoveg, like at the grass out there, it's completely dead. It's just there's nothing going on there. Even the trees are starting to get parched. The backyard looks fine because I water it, but anything that's not next to a canal or being watered right now looks completely fucking dead. The crappy robot. So, Hunter Avalone, yikes. I know the name. I couldn't exactly say what he does, actually. So, I wonder what's he gotten up to now. I guess we'll hear about it later. First and foremost, I would like to make a little bit of a comment here. I made a short the other day about this. This is about the Styx Hexenhammer figurines. Link in the description if you do want to go and see them for yourself. If you see the little 3D printed figurine behind me that says I won't back down, the little stick man, a few of these have been offered now for sale on eBay. It's a bid-only auction. I will explain the importance of that in a moment. And some people had a problem with this, saying that it was wrong to charge hundreds of dollars for a 3D printed figurine that you could get for 50 cents worth of resin. This is, number one, something that people have asked for years and years. If anything, I dragged my heels on it. Probably should have been offering these on a steady basis, actually, through G-Sticks, the individual who creates them, for some time. I mean, the only thing that's in more demand is plushies, and I have a feeling that's just meme bullshit. I'm never going to release plushies. Some people were talking about me getting a Funko Pop or something like that. I'm like, okay, that would be a bridge too far into the grifting. A little 3D printed figurine that's been asked for, though, widely, I personally see as perfectly appropriate. People value them how they want. I wanted to make clear a couple of things with regards to some of the criticism that I got. First, some of it's fair, like that it should have a certificate of authenticity sort of thing with it. And they will. That's been determined. I've already talked to the artist, as I alluded to yesterday. There will be an authentication process. So yes, indeed, you can proclaim it to be collectible. And that would not be included with somebody who simply wants to take a screenshot of the object and 3D print it themselves, make their own file. So it will be authenticated. Secondly, some people were worried about the price. The top one is $530. I can understand, and anyone who thinks that I look down on people that are poor, you got to understand that I've scrounged cigarette butts off the asphalt, and I spent years worrying about homelessness. I know what it's like to be poor. I'm not putting down on anyone by offering 3D printed figurines. And the price was determined by the demand of the people that want to bid on them. Now, this was an open-ended auction. It was bid only. The bidding started at 99 cents. When I started this off, I did not imagine that they would go that high. They did. That's out of my control. It's out of G-Stick's control. And so, I mean, I can understand. You're like, well, I want merch that's affordable. I would love to produce an unlimited sort of line of merch, especially for mugs and stuff. Like, I wish I could work with whatever company made the BitChute mugs, because the design is really great, beveled in there. I'd like to do that. But you got to understand, I've worked with 3 different merch managers so far. I mean, under effectively contract, and all 3 times it's fallen through. So I'm hesitant to even bother doing that. I would be more interested in working with individual third parties for individual products at this point, not having a single merch line and a merch manager even connected to a website. Like, I would love to have, like, tarlwarwick.net used to be the website that was running to collate my material, and things fell through. And I found that third parties can be unreliable. I'd rather communicate about an individual run, an individual object, or something like that, and leave it at that. That's what I'm interested in. I would like to have, again, I'd like to have a general merch line, but I do not have the training necessary to have like a Teespring store, and would prefer to have like more quality products. And that's sort of where we're at. As far as the people that were acting in bad faith in the comment area, acting as though Styx has changed, he's sold out, he's so different than he used to be. I've been a blatant and unrepentant capitalist for a very long time. So you must be remembering me from like 2007 when I was like preparing to vote for Obama or something like that. Yes, I've changed from that. I've seen the light. By 2012, of course, I was fucking around with polls on behalf of Ron Paul. So anyway, we'll get past that. I just wanted to clear that up for people that didn't see the short involved or the original video. I mean, you can bid on them if you want. I do admit that cost is high for a 3D printed figurine, but people are valuing them as they want. They are collectible. There will only ever be up to 28 of these ever made. So, and that are actually that come with the authentication. So, Sebastian Monroe, last week Friday, you gave me quite a scare. Forcing yourself to work wouldn't be fair, but to abandon Clankton, you wouldn't dare. Drexkin, I used to like DeSantis until he kicked Trump when he needed support. The last nail in my support for DeSantis is when every neocon rhino backed him. Not all of them, but there are some. The old adage about the Bushes or Clinton actually backing him, that's not true. My problem was HR 269, mainly that, and he's made too many strategic blunders. The problem is he has simply made too many mistakes. If you put DeSantis into a general election when the entire uniparty, assuming that he's not controlled opposition, so supposedly you've got shenanigans in the election, if you put somebody in there who doesn't know how to handle basic situations, he'd get crushed. DeSantis would fare, in my opinion, more poorly than Trump. Trump is not guaranteed to win. We still have to wait to see what happens in the fucking primaries, which we'll be talking about. We're going to get an indicator by the end of Super Tuesday next year. And I'll be covering that, of course, widely at the time. I'm hoping that I'm able to do so live. If I have to get a hotel room for Super Tuesday, I probably will. Tim Christopoulos, there is no need to apologize. Take care, my friend, and thank you for your woke kryptonite. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not apologetic. Some people, I mean, they had legit concerns, and I'm not going to sit there and assume that clankers are arguing in bad faith or anything. I just wanted to clear the air and make sure that people knew sort of what page I was on. Automatic selector. Someone placed a copy of the Bhagavad Gita propped up against the tree in front of my house. Am I going to die? No, you get a free copy of the Bhagavad Gita? Nice. You were given a gift. Good read. Awesome Diesel on Rumble says, is this live? Yes, we are actually live at this time. And Beagle Cake, morning chat, new morning work schedule, so Styx is now my morning news source. Awesome sauce. You made a good decision in your life. The Patriot Cairo, the EPA is giving the University of Arizona $10 million to fund a center on environmental justice. What a total grift waste of tax money. Defund the universities. Yeah, you should have them use their endowments to actually pay for things for a while. Now, the first news story here is something that is futuristic. This is next year that we're talking about. I wanted to go through the GOP primary schedule and talk about my expectations, my anticipation at this current juncture based on my analysis of polls, the trajectory of the race so far. Of course, there's a great deal of uncertainty in this election because the front runner for the GOP might end up, at least in the general, if not the latter primaries, might end up running from house arrest at the Mar-a-Lago. Great idea. Then all the MAGA voters will definitely vote for Trump. They would masturbate with sandpaper in order to gain the capability of doing so, because they would be pissed at the establishment. I would like to point out that in about 6 months, we have the Iowa caucuses. That is January 22nd. A week later, you have New Hampshire. A week later, you have Nevada. And a few weeks after that, you have South Carolina. Now, depending on what happens in the first 4 primaries and caucuses, we may or may not have to wait till the end of Super Tuesday, which is March 5th, to figure out who the nominee for the GOP is going to be. If Donald Trump wins at least 3 of the first 4 states, I will call the primary for him. The writing will be on the wall, insurmountable capability. Even if it's close, he will win because he would pull it off on Super Tuesday. I have a feeling that I would give the over and under at 3 of the GOP potential nominees dropping before any voting even happens. So before Iowa, I have a feeling over the next 6 months, the field will thin some. Whether or not these people endorse and who they endorse is completely up in the goddamn air. Think about it. You're Mike Pence. So let's say that he runs out of money. He drops out in November or something. So it's before the Iowa caucus. Who do you endorse? You've been praising yourself as part of a successful administration. It'd look a little bit obtuse if you don't, therefore, decide to endorse Trump. But Trump has reamed you. You're not really on speaking terms with him. Do you endorse DeSantis? For what political reason? At that point, if you wait long enough, the writing, again, may very well be on the wall. We have substantial enough polling well beyond the margin of error to show that Trump leads by about 30 points or thereabouts. A little bit more, a little bit less. I'd say 25 to 35 is probably going to be the end number. If he goes into Iowa with that kind of lead, considering he does fairly well among religious voters inexplicably, despite being not religious himself, and I see through Trump when he does the Jesus thing. I forgive him because he does it with the wink of an eye and the tip of the hat. I know where he's coming from. If he wins Iowa, New Hampshire will be a little bit harder. He hasn't led by as much there. And then if he grabs up Nevada, it's all over. It doesn't matter what happens in South Carolina, where he's heavily favored to win anyway. I think he has a bigger lead there than in any of the other starting states. He goes into Super Tuesday. Everyone else is demoralized or has dropped out in the interim. The writing is on the wall. If Trump only gets 2 of the first starting states, which could happen. He got 3 the last time around. Remember, he lost Iowa. Iowa tends to be a bit of an outlier. Let's say he loses in Iowa. Look for DeSantis or whoever the second place candidate is to surge up a little bit. They'll get some delegates from New Hampshire. Then you have a more protracted battle. What happens on Super Tuesday, though, if you look at the states that are actually voting, a lot of it is Trump territory. By the end of Super Tuesday, we'll know whether Trump is outperforming, underperforming, or performing on par. Unless he outperforms by at least 5 points, there's no reason for there to be a contest going forward after Super Tuesday. In my opinion, that seals the deal. Anyone remaining in at that point is literally just trying to get attention. It will be over. Now, there's a spoiler here, of course. Donald Trump could be disqualified by an act of Congress from running, in which case he very likely mounts a write-in campaign, or people on his behalf do. Fuck the establishment, write-in Trump. The GOP is dead. It would deny the GOP the election. They would not win. Biden would be reelected. The Democrats would probably end up with a supermajority in the House and Senate, and then all hell will break loose. To tell the truth, I don't expect this to happen, but this is a possibility that we're analyzing. When we get closer to the mid-primaries, around March or thereabouts, we'll be able to read the room, I think, a little bit more. I would caution people one important thing, though. regardless of what you see in the polls right now, even if you're using a really great aggregate, I use RCP, I've got plenty of material to work with, I've got lots of numbers, I can look at the sampling methodology, and I can get a pretty good read on the room. We still have a very long way to go until the primaries even begin, and some people are acting like it's a foregone conclusion right now. It's not. Donald Trump could die. He could be disqualified from running again, mounting presumptively a write-in campaign of some sort thereafter. Or people write him in anyway. They simply refuse to vote for the GOP because they feel stiff, they feel con. Those things are up in the air. Biden could die. Biden's 81 years old. He'd be 83 on election day. By the way, I'd like to point one thing out to the DeSantis fans. Technically, it's twofold. If you believe that there were shenanigans in the 2020 election, and you believe that DeSantis is worth voting for, he represents populism, he cares about you, why would those shenanigans not be applied to him? That's number one. So again, why bother in such a case? Number two, I've seen a lot of them claiming that age is the big issue. The DeSantis primary selling point, he's younger. He's Trump without the baggage. Do you not think that those same shenanigan enablers would drag out any possible baggage in the general anyway? And do you not? Why would age make a difference? Donald Trump is almost half a decade younger than Joe Biden is. So I would strenuously avoid such nonsense. Think up real reasons to support your candidate, as opposed to the largely disingenuous shit that I'm seeing so far. I had respect for DeSantis and actually wanted him to run for the presidency in the future up until some of the mistakes that he's made. My problem is simply that he makes too many mistakes, and you can't fucking do that if you're going to go into a general election. I think he would get creamed. Honestly, I think if DeSantis is the nominee, the GOP loses even absent shenanigans. You don't even need the uniparty won't even bother at that point. Regardless of how honest he is, they'll know that he's going to lose. In my opinion, that's the likely trajectory if that happens. There is a 99% chance based on literally all available data that Trump is the nominee. There's a better than 50-50 chance if nominated that he wins, whether he's running from house arrest or not. Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 was consistently behind his opponents in the general polling. He was also consistently behind in a number of targeted states. He's not right now. He's been consistently a bit ahead. That shows that people are voting with their wallets, number one. They don't like Biden's economy. Bidenomics has failed. I think that's a general consensus view. That's number one. And number two, Joe Biden has weakened the United States worldwide. He's perceived of as weak. If you've got a socio-political climate around the world, which is kind of rough, you kind of want somebody who's on the strong side leading you. You probably don't want a weakling who can't even tie his own shoes. That doesn't guarantee that Trump wins. And of course, in 2020, certain things happened on election night. It was fairly clear that Donald Trump was ahead in literally all of the needed states. And then the next day, ballot printers go brrr. That did happen. I'm not going to pretend that it didn't. I'm not going to pretend that it's a conspiracy theory to observe the obvious. If you assume that's going to happen again anyway, I would vote for Trump anyway because it would piss them off more. Switching to DeSantis won't piss them off as much. Oh, he threw MAGA light at them. Okay, well, then they just kick him aside. DeSantis shuts up. He goes back to Floridian politics, stays in there, but doesn't do anything, and it's fine. Trump is the only one egotistical enough and crazy enough to continue the fight. And so I'm willing to throw in my lot with him. I don't care about winning or losing. I care about the principle of it in part. I don't care about the GOP. I care about the concept of the ideology that people should be represented. If I want that, I'm throwing in with Trump. If all I want to do is have a hollow victory that means nothing after the election, well, I'll vote for DeSantis. But then again, if you want that, you might as well vote for Bush. Vote for Mitt Romney. Vote for John Kerry. Vote for any of the uniparty candidates that have stood in. Ron DeSantis has shown his true colors, in my opinion. I can't support HR 269. I can't support his massively ill-timed mistakes, the launch of his campaign only being the lesser of them. The other one was attacking Trump days after his indictment in a most hammer-handed manner. You can't put that forth in a general election unless there were shenanigans on his behalf. He probably couldn't fucking win. That's the irony of it. President Irina Vladimirovna Putina wasted over 2 hours today trying to explain to a commie that freedom and hard work are good things. How do you deal with this stuff? I don't bother to debate commies. I would like to rent a helicopter instead. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Code STIX, free shipping. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yes, you can get your Biltong. Spurger King, what stonks do you like, if any? I don't have any stocks or anything like that. I have no interest at this time in any company. I do have Bitcoin. In fact, I swapped out a lot of the other coins that I had recently just to consolidate in Bitcoin because the other ones can be hit or miss. ADA is still, I think there's a usefulness, Ethereum, a few of the others, but for the most part, I've just consolidated Bitcoin. Dennis the Menace, might want to check out John Michael Greer. I discovered him because of his peak oil theory, but apparently he's a longtime occultist. Sounded up your alley. Yeah, it does. I've heard of him before. I think people have super chatted about him several times. The Landlord Harassment Channel, Sticks. I've had a bunch of merch ideas for you for a long time. I will DM you under the name Hawklo. Okay, that's fine. I'll take a look at that. Ashley, Mega Monday sounds better than Super Tuesday. Yeah, it would be more mimetic. By the way, that's the other thing we got to mention. The Democrats have shaken up their order to put South Carolina first because they're afraid that otherwise Joe Biden not winning a state right out of the gate might actually face a protracted primary against RFK Jr. They are afraid of that. They're afraid that he's going to break some toys. I don't know whether their fear is really justified. RFK Jr. seems to cap out at 20, maybe 25, which, you know, it's a non-packed field. So the fact that Biden can only carry 60 is weak, admittedly. But, you know, I think Biden is a shoo-in for the nomination with the presumption that no really, really strong candidate comes in and he doesn't die number two. RFK Jr. can definitely make a problem for him, though, and they're definitely trying to streamline the process to get Biden reelected. The Patriot Cairo, will the dam break if Hunter's business partner testifies? Don't ever expect to have any closure on the Biden crime family. Much like with Hillary Clinton's email server, they're never going to do anything. We'll know that they're guilty, as we literally already do. We'll know that they're sleazebags, but the justice system is controlled by the Uniparty. Do not put any faith in them. They do not do justice, they do injustice, as we see with the indictment charade. John Ski, what other holiday uses skin color to participate? 19th is to keep certain people to keep angry and victimized. We will be talking about Juneteenth soon. Paul, Ron signed that bill in a foreign country. Retardlicans would go ape if any dementocrat did that. Yes, I do find it funny that the HR 269 was signed over in Jerusalem by Ron DeSantis. That's the bill that makes it impossible. I mean, if you leave a piece of paper that someone construes as racially or ethnically or whatever offensive, and it happens to blow off of the lamppost and land in their yard, you could potentially face a felony charge. This should have been scored out of the bill, the billeting proportion of it specifically, and it wasn't. And I told people at the time when it was first suggested at the congressional level there, if Ron DeSantis did not raise that issue and have that removed before signing it, I could not support him for the presidency. Before that, I was willing to entertain the concept. You know, again, Trump might die. Trump could be disqualified from running, and you still want to mount a campaign capable of winning. If Ron DeSantis had stood on the principle of the First Amendment, I would have felt much more comfortable about him. But he decided not to do that. I have a difficulty with this particular bill. Next news story. Should conservatives celebrate Juneteenth? Federal holiday honors a victory for America. We should celebrate occasions that mark the realization of our founding principles, and Juneteenth marks an important victory in that arena. Yes, in Galveston Bay, Union troops arrived on June 19th to deliver the Emancipation Proclamation to all of the slaves in that area, saying, hey, you realize that now that we're here, you realize that you're free, right? Yeah, go do your own thing. I don't have a problem with Juneteenth. On this, I deviate from the conservatives. I don't feel, why the fuck would I give a shit about it? It's just a holiday commemorating some slaves in Texas were aware of the fact that they no longer needed to, do the brown sugar shuffle. Since I am a libertarian and I don't believe in violating other people's rights, slavery never should have happened. It should have been a sticking point earlier on. It was fucking stupid by the 1860s because of the Industrial Revolution. and is a blot on many nations' history. Although I would point out that it continues at a large degree in places that are, especially places that Hillary Clinton has been, seem to have a lot of slavery. Libya, Haiti, China, certainly. There are millions of slaves in China, mostly people from Vietnam, Cambodia, Korea, other places, sexually abused typically. Parts of the Middle East, you go to the UAE, you're going to find maids that are basically slaves there. And they're not usually going to be ethnically Arab. They'll be from East Africa or something like that. Slavery is still unfortunately too common in the world. Juneteenth, though, here's the problem. It's not with the concept of celebrating the fact that a group of slaves was told, you're free. That's a good thing because slavery was retarded. The bad thing is that people in celebrating this, they have this weird lionization of the Union as this great white hope sort of army that was single-mindedly trying to abolish slavery. So that's the point of the Civil War. Lincoln, as a great progressive reformer, loved black people, wanted to personally cut the manacles off of little black children. These things are not true. Number one, the Emancipation Proclamation only involved the southern states. Slavery continued in several northern states for a protracted period of time after the Civil War had even ended. Slavery was not abolished until later. Abe Lincoln was already dead when the number of states required to ratify the abolition of slavery actually did so. He never even lived to see slavery abolished in like Delaware. Delaware held out until the very end. I think Kentucky was one of the others, if I remember correctly. During the Civil War, while there was a pressure campaign, several states abolished slavery. Can I please ask people this question? Since the Civil War raged for a number of years, if Abraham Lincoln, this tall, solemn man with the grave face looking down, always backlit as though from heaven, of course, looking down upon the suffering of these black people, he was convinced that he must wage war to free them from their masters. If that was the case, why did he not emancipate the Southern slaves on day one instead of waiting for years and years at a time? It's because, as he pointed out when he was debating on multiple occasions, he didn't give a fuck about the issue. He saw that as a strategic issue. The problem is, here's the strategic side of it. And this is not a pleasant concept. It's something that liberals will call you a bigot if you bring it up because they have no countermand for it. If you free a bunch of people, so you've marched into an area, Galveston, Texas in this case, in other cases, some region in Romania, some region in Russia, whatever. And you announce that an underprivileged group like the Hutu or Tutsis, that's definitely apt in this case, have been freed. You don't no longer oppressed. Do whatever you want. We're here to defend you. You do what you feel to do. You've got a group of people who have absolutely nothing. They don't have property. They have shoes and a shirt, and that's pretty much it. You have to cut their fucking manacles off. What do you think they're going to goddamn do when all of the people who could defend the women and children of their former oppressors happen to be fighting in a war 500 miles away? They will go looting, and they will burn things because they're angry. And there was an encouragement fairly actively among certain individuals at the time to get them to do this. There were women and children that were maimed or raped or killed. There were people that were abducted. There were people that were beaten in the streets, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you can say to yourself, well, it's justified. They were enslaved. They have a grievance. Women and children didn't enslave them. A bunch of politicians did. Those politicians were busy sitting pretty. Of course, the South was run by people just as goddamn dysfunctional as the Northern government, of course, in full recognition. They were retarded too. This only recognizes as a victory one particular strategic moment in time in which a handful of the slave population of one state happened to be made aware of the fact that they were no longer enslaved. It has nothing to do with the slave debate in general. It has nothing to do with the purpose of the Civil War. The Civil War in the United States, which is literally called the Burger Krieg, by the way, over here, which I find hilarious given the Ameriburger meme. The Burger Krieg was effectively waged because of state secession, to hold together the Union, to bring those states to heal, back into line. Slavery was an afterthought. It was definitely an issue that was brought up at the time, and there's no denying that, but it wasn't the central issue. Largely, it was a matter of economics and interpretation of the 10th Amendment. And that's the long and short of it. So celebrate Juneteenth. Of course, that is today. It's fine. You're celebrating the end of slavery in that one region. I celebrate it too. There never should have been slavery anywhere in the world. People should live in peace and harmony and freedom and be able to do what they fucking please. Juneteenth, though, ironically, in a juxtaposition here, is being celebrated mainly by political maniacs that want to bring back slavery. Only this time it's not race-based. This time it's everyone. You live in a pod and eat bugs, and the elites will eat filet mignon and live in mansions. You will have to reduce your carbon footprint by carpooling or whatever. They'll continue to own a fleet of limos and a private jet. That's the hypocrisy. The problem that I have with Juneteenth is the historical ignorance and the hypocrisy, not the concept of the celebration itself. Of course, slavery should not have existed in the United States. And it's funny because some white supremacists say this too. I would further point out that Abraham Lincoln was a member of the same society as Henry Clay that was attempting to abolish slavery, partially to repatriate black people back to Africa because they did not consider them intellectual equals. They did not believe in the equality of races. He was effectively nothing more than the average, semi-bigoted white dude of his time. He didn't want to enslave people. But more, he didn't want the southern states complaining about tariffs. That was the central premise. So one day you wage the Burger Krieg over slavery. I'm sure Abraham Lincoln cared so much about the little black kids. No, he didn't. That's why he didn't bring it up until 1864. They were already fighting for years. He didn't utter one fucking word about the issue other than in private. He said, well, it's a regrettable circumstance that slavery exists. Well, I think the average person by then realized that whipping other human beings in order to get cotton was not a nice thing. But he doesn't sound really out of focus with the rest of mainline society at the time. He was only a quasi-abolitionist, and for entirely different reasons from many of them on the moral or biblical token. Let's see. We got here's some super chats, I believe. Although I've got to find them first. It's always a problem. Oh, for the love of God. I never know where I am on this. Soapmaker19. Can I get a spoon clank and Godspeed for my black Labrador Luna? She's 12 today and still going strong. Best canine life mate ever. Clanks to you. I don't have a spoon, but I can use a pen. It sounds about the same. So yes, clanks to your dog, Luna. Kendo Betta, how do you explain that civilians have the right to own automatic weaponry other than saying I have a right when they believe that civilians shouldn't have access to such weaponry? Well, just the fact that they're members of the militia. And the meaning of the militia is clear. If you've got a copy of my gun rights debates book, the gun rights debate, how to win it, I do explain that in detail, along with, I think, 24 other subsections or thereabouts. Automatic weaponry, it can be dangerous if it's used by a moron. Psychopaths tend to be anyway. OMG Puppies, ever read C.S. Lewis' sci-fi trilogy? That hideous strength stands with 1984 and Brave New World, presents an eerie mix of political and demonic evil. Never heard of it, actually. So yes, we've given our thoughts on slavery. Believe it or not, I'm against owning other people. I heard a funny joke about slavery once, but I don't know if I can repeat it on a YouTube video. Has to do with, believing in it, but not being racist because you just think that that everyone should own a couple or something like that. I won't read it verbatim out. Dagnabbit32, my son has a Rumble channel. He usually releases creepypasta videos on Tuesday. Wolf Knight 98. Nice to know. Creepypasta is fun. And a follow-up, do you think the Uniparty will cancel the 24 election? No. Could they even do such a thing? Under real extenuating circumstances, an election could be canceled. I think that would cause a civil war. I don't think, even at this point, I don't think they're necessarily willing to go that far. They're more likely to try to JFK Donald Trump, in all honesty. And again, it'll look like an accident or random extremists just happened to pull the trigger at that time, even though they were coerced by the CIA or something. That person then disappears Epstein style and they discover it up. Ashley, if repatriation was successful, how different would the USA be? Well, you wouldn't have had Michael Jackson. So good luck. You wouldn't have had Ike Turner either. So, there's always a balance. I look at the races and different groups of people and I say there's good and bad in every possible grouping. The only true group that exists is the individual. They get usually artificially lumped in together for good or bad purposes. Helps with human organization. It also helps with human, manipulation. Next news story, the guerrilla war to stop the no-labels from electing Trump. Yes, the no-labelers are a loose collective of certain individuals within politics that claim to be like they're independent. They're just pissed at the establishment because they keep, nominating geriatrics like Joe Biden. And they don't want a Biden-Trump rematch, so they're threatening to draft somebody in to run an independent candidacy that would be privately funded. And it's not clear who they would run. There's been some talk of Joe Manchin, who is likely out of a job. Honestly, if I were Joe Manchin, right now I would announce a presidential candidacy. I would decide to fuck the Democratic Party the same way that they fucked me. And I would go down laughing. I mean, I wouldn't win, but I would deny Biden the re-election, mount an independent bid the second you lose the primaries, and it'd be hilarious. And by the way, Joe Manchin has the clout to force Joe Biden onto a debate stage, which would also include RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. If Joe Manchin decides to do this, it will flip my beliefs about him to the very positive, and I'll say, I think that I know what he's doing, by the way. The no-labelers want to put someone else forth. And in the Democrats' mind, the problem is that an ideological centrist is more likely to take more votes from Joe Biden because Trump's fans are more radical. They're more out there and they're more hardened. Now, the last part I would definitely agree with. Trump's fans, again, would beat off with sandpaper to vote for him. With Biden's fans, it's like if there's a trickle on election day, it's not 100% sure that they'll get to the polls. I would agree there's an enthusiasm gap. Trump's core fan base is not even a majority of the GOP, but it's large enough to make a measurable difference. It's going to come down to independent voters. And so if the no-labelers stand in and gain 2 points, just 2 points, they're worried that they're not going to be able to print enough ballots off in the middle of the night in order to countermand that without looking awfully goddamn suspicious. And I mean much more than in 2020. They're worried also, I would point out, however, about Cornel West. Cornel West has already decided to run as the Green Party candidate. He'll win that nomination, by the way. There's basically no contest. Originally, he was running in a different party. I can't remember the name of them because they're irrelevant. He decided to switch because they probably offered him more money. So he's the Green candidate. Even if he only takes 500,000 votes nationwide from the far left that would otherwise largely support Joe Biden in the general election, it's measurable. It's a measurable impact. We're talking about races in which it might come down to less than 10,000 votes. If Cornel West and a no-labeler come in and they're polling respectively at a couple points apiece, Biden's toast. There's no way for you to print enough ballots in enough locations without getting caught. And I don't mean caught as in we have observable evidence that gets covered up and we pretend that we can't notice it. I mean like as in you get prosecuted for it because it's just so goddamn transparent. It would throw the nation into tumult. It would throw the nation into uproar. And they're genuinely, I think this is a genuine worry. I don't think when they put out pieces like this, I don't think it's a pretense of worrying like sometimes they do. Like they do that with DeSantis, like, well, DeSantis could actually make it against Biden and we need to understand that he's just as rabid and crazy as Trump. Now, I think that's astroturfing. They want him to be nominee because DeSantis would be easier to beat because he wouldn't have a core fan base of any real size. I realize that. On this one, though, I really do think that they're worried. I think that they're terrified that a couple of third-partyists are going to do just enough damage so that they can't quite print enough ballots in Wisconsin or in Florida or something like that. I think that they're worried about it. They should be. And that would be funny. Imagine that Joe Manchin and Cornel West end up getting blamed for throwing the election to Donald Trump in a non-consecutive second-term focus against a geriatric dude who refused to campaign. It would be the ultimate election. This is exactly, by the way, the kind of story that Americans should want to paint in the history books. Imagine how epic our generations will be reckoned by having participated in such a great, great thing. So how funny it would be, how noteworthy and how historically hilarious it would be if that ends up occurring. That's why I'm going to vote for Trump. Absolutely, I want that to happen. I want this whole chaotic mess to happen. I want it to be a chaos election. Finally, something around here. Joe Biden putters around on stage incoherently. He's the least entertaining person in the room, except when he says something zany. Half the time, though, he doesn't even go out to campaign. I wish that he would come out and make more weird comments. At the very least, we'd have something to laugh at. We don't have mean tweets right now. It's a real problem in the country. OMG puppy. Oh, I just read that one. You're trying to trick me. Ashley, I read that one too. Sometimes chat decides to move for no reason, and I'm not the one doing it. Slavery, legal disclaimer, Styx has never benefited from me. Yeah, that's the other thing, reparations. Yes, because people who lived in the North owned a lot of slaves for a very long time, especially in Vermont. Next news story. Las Vegas police install cameras on home that reported aliens, family afraid for their safety. I would like to point something out here. The Las Vegas police are not installing cameras on your home because they're worried that the mothership might come down. You guys might be in trouble. Did they see something suspicious on your property? Were you acting suspicious at the time, like obviously on meth or something like that? Because I've noted, and they've literally studied this, a significant number of incidents involving seeing space aliens, especially getting anally probed, happen with PCP. I think that the police put that camera on your property to surveil you, not to look up at the skies and surveil the skies for UFOs, for flying saucers. If I was this family, I would be getting my affairs in order and saying, have I done anything illegal lately? Maybe I should scrub my browser history because I think there's a reason that the monitoring system is up there. That's the truth. The Las Vegas police are, even as a political, even if it's like a public relations stunt, hey, don't worry, we take this seriously. They're not going to put a heavy, high-end monitoring system on your fucking home to look for aliens. That's number one. That's not going to happen. Number two, you didn't see aliens. The clip that I saw is not entirely clear whether it actually relates to the claims that they were making, and was clearly CGI'd, so it doesn't really matter. Aliens are not coming down into your yard. They're not interested in what you're doing. I fully believe in life on other planets, yes, including intelligent life. It may be aware of us. There may be another civilization in this general cluster within the galaxy that is aware of our existence. Assuming that there's no hard cap on their speed capabilities to actually get here. And there could be a ship with like a robotic system, self-sustaining, that just contains a genetic core to replicate their species the second it smashes into our planet and destroy it entirely. It's possible. Hate to tell you, but that is a 1 in a million chance. So it's better than your chances of winning megabucks. Thankfully, it'll take them about 10,000 years to get here or so. So you've got a little bit of time to burn until then. There are aliens out there, but if they're aware of the world at large, of man, they probably avoid us even if they're capable of coming. Because our world is filled with pathogens. It's filled with pollen. It's filled with bacteria. It's filled with viruses. It's filled with fungi. And the only way to look at that and say, hey, is it safe to land on this planet, assuming that it's already populated, is to get close and take samples and try to figure out what's going on. That would mean a widespread number of samples unless you were crazy. Then evolution takes hold. The samples that you made 100 years ago don't fully document the flora and fauna of the actual world. In fact, it's probably suicidal for any race capable of going from star system to star system to ever approach another planet with life on it. The human race would probably destroy itself if it did, because you'd end up with some sort of spore or something like that that would massively disturb the biosphere or lead to infection. It would be out of place, but it would still be able to survive, and everything would come crashing down. At the very least, you knock yourself back to the Copper Age or something like that. Aliens exist. I can guarantee you that there's intelligent life on other planets. The universe is far too large for it not to have happened. We know that a significant number of planets out there that we can document are Earth-like, at least in size. There are some in the Goldilocks zone. There are some we suspect have a decent amount of liquid water. Life is out there. Come on, don't bullshit. Mathematically, I think it's impossible to be otherwise. But the life that arose there, even if it's intelligent, probably is uninterested in or avoidant of our world. You probably have a case here where this family was doped up, and the cops realized that they were doped up. But because they were doped up, they said, oh my God, we're so scared of the aliens. Can you help us? Yeah, let's put this monitoring equipment up on your property. We'll be able to hear everything that goes on in your home and in the yard. Don't worry about it. Oh, well, we can hear them discussing their next drug deal. What's that smell? Oh, they're making hash. They're making methamphetamine. The cops have set these people up, and they're too drugged out to realize what the fuck they're in for. They will be arrested, I'm assuming, in the next month or two, based on the evidence currently being gathered from their property. Again, the cops, if the cops come to your home and you say, oh, I'm scared, you know, I saw aliens or Bigfoot or something, and they say, well, we can help you, ma'am, don't worry. Here, let's put this spying network, this monitoring network all around your property. We should probably put it in your home too, in case Bigfoot comes in there. Do you really think that's what they're doing? Are you born yesterday? How fucking gullible you are? Jesus fucking Christ. Now, the video that I saw that was supposedly from this is clearly CGI. The cops would take one look at that and they'd chuckle and they would leave if they weren't trying to entrap you in some way. I would, if I was this family, I'd go on vacation, probably. Mr. Pockets X. Aliens can travel the stars but can't survive spicy germs? Yeah, that's the other thing. If they've got that capability, I mean, they might be inclined to do so, but they probably live in a post-scarcity society. Why the hell would they want to come to Earth? They wouldn't even be able to converse with us necessarily. Who says they breathe oxygen? Who says that they're not aquatic in nature, that some where they have literal mermaids and mermen on them or something? Merziers, I suppose. Joe Santos, who is Stick Saxonhammer? Bard, political commentator and software developer. True? Or Bard needs work? Chat GPT, libertarian political commentator. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not a software developer. Political commentator, yes. Yes, of course. A drunk changeling. Happy Juneteenth, the day we told the blacks the rent was due. Yeah, now welcome to paying taxes. Yay, you're free. Well, I mean, you're not free from the government. You still have to bend knee to them. You still have to bend knee in that society, in that era, to a church usually. But at least, you know, instead of beating you randomly, we only beat you if you fall short on your taxes now. You're being treated like full citizens. SP Elite said N. Sean the Red, you sure about that? Read the Sumerian Kings list. SP Elite sent an I. I think I know what you're trying to spell out there. X Mr. Pocket. Oh, yeah, I already read that one. SP Elite, GG I mean, I'm back from Morocco Sticks. Was fun. I get what you're up to there with your linguistic shenanigans. So yeah, family in Las Vegas area is about to fuck around and find out. They were probably drunk or on drugs, and that's why they're being monitored by the cops. It's the Las Vegas PD doesn't deploy expensive devices on your home because they're worried that the UFO is going to land there and take over Earth. I feel sorry for these people. They must have been real doped up. Awesome Diesel. Even if the shot was safe and effective in all trials, can't read the rest of that out on a YouTube stream, but I do appreciate it. People on Rumble, of course, you can read that for yourself. My apologies. Dagnabbit32, Sticks, but you forgot about drones and satellites. Yeah, drones could probe a planet, but again, there's no evidence of that. All the UFO footage, what is it? It's highly grainy. It's out of focus. It's usually, there's no scale given or anything like that. Sean the Red sent an I as well. Next news story, a sense of betrayal. Liberals dismay as Muslim-led U.S. city bans pride flags. Many liberals celebrated when Hamtramck, Michigan, elected a Muslim-majority council in 2015, but a vote to exclude LGBTQ plus flags from property has soured relations. This is the city over there in the Detroit area. It's predominantly Islamic now. It used to be predominantly Polish, but the demographics shifted. And they voted, because they're religious zealots by and large, to ban pride flags from city property, from public areas, parks, and so forth. And the liberals are confused about this. They don't understand why this is happening. And it's because of their typical white liberal gated community savior mentality. They think that other people owe them for sticking their necks out on your behalf. Well, you have to vote for me. Stay on the plantation, basically. You have to vote for me because I gave you welfare breadcrumbs. You have to vote for me. I disarmed this white supremacist, something like that. And now they finally found a demographic that is completely oblivious to caring about that reciprocity. Well, we washed your hands, now wash ours. And now the other hands are slapping them in the face. They're acting surprised by this. I'm not surprised in the least. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I covered many years ago back when the religious debates were more frequent online. I'm pretty sure that I had a video. It might still be up. Someone can search it if they want, in which I talked about that the liberals would eventually, there would come a day in which, for political reasons, they regretted promoting what is a religiously zealous ideology. It's one thing if you're talking about some random liberal Muslim. So someone who says, okay, I believe in Allah, I don't really go to the mosque or something. It's the same as with Christianity. If you were to import a bunch of fire and brimstone Baptists into an otherwise irreligious country, eventually you'd have crosses everywhere. If you import people who are religiously Islamic into an area and they amalgamate and they eventually have localized or state level power, they are going to vote their self-interest and live the lives as they want to. That's the system that they live in, and that's the system that you live in. Somehow the liberals were completely oblivious. I was not the only irreligious person warning them of this, and, well, they got their comeuppance. Your hipsterish community there, right outside of Highland Park, ironically enough, has now banned pride flags on public property. Enjoy. I'm guaranteed this won't be the end of this particular conversation. House Santos moved from Portugal to New Zealand in January for work. Absolutely full of libs, and it's super isolated. Looking to move to Austria or Switzerland. Thoughts on Austria and Switzerland? They're pretty cool. I think Switzerland's probably better than Austria. I think less political correctness. I would point out that here in Europe, political correctness is not really a thing, actually, as much as it is in the United States, the land of the free. The crucifying of people for having wrong think views is much less here in the Netherlands. This is supposedly a far left country. Their largest fucking political party is made up of a bunch of farmers who didn't want their farms taken by the WEF. It's literally the tractor party. Yeah, I'm thinking that the appreciation for free speech flies over the heads of many Americans due to decadence. They say, well, it's in the Constitution, so I don't have to do any activism in order to defend the Constitution. President Irina Vladimirovna Putina. Funny thing is, they banned all non-American flags, not even mentioning the pride flag. Yeah, exactly. Liberals getting it wrong as usual. Next news story. Virginia wildlife officials trespassed on man's land and stole his trail camera, lawsuit alleges. Yes, you can read about this yourself. I would just like to point this out. I won't get into the story itself, although it's a bullshit story. It's the idea that an open field, even if it's fenced in, is not protected from trespass or something like that, or warrant usage, which is kind of bullshit and bizarre. Anyway, what I wanted to point out, you either have private property or you don't. But I would go one step further than this as a libertarian, of course. I think that unless your primary residence is exempt from property taxes, you're just renting it from the government and society in general anyway. So I would just like to say that I approve of getting rid of that up to an arbitrary value on the first primary property for every person. If I ever ran for the presidency, that would be one of my primary platforms, actually. State shall not levy a property tax on people's homesteads. I think it's a good idea. Anyway, the last news story, I'll keep this quick. Patients left to wait by Britain's public health service turned to crowdfunding. Some sad stories in here. So, I mean, it's funny on the end of socialized medicine failing again. The individual stories are not so fun. Like there's a girl named Holly Reeves, has a medical condition where she struggles to swallow food. So doctors fitted the 5-year-old from Devon with a feeding tube. But Holly has asthma, and if she has serious coughing episode, the tube falls out, leading to her starving to the point of collapse. With repeated visits to hospitals, her mother Amy Thomas told CNN. The alternative is to have a percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy, or PEG, a flexible feeding tube fitted to the stomach. But her family say they were told by the UK's National Health Service that this wait could be up to 2 years. I'd like to point something out to people who keep applauding communalist medicine. Commie medicine is great at getting you the basics. It's great at getting you the inhaler, that she presumptively needs. No problem there. You can go into the pharmacy and get it. You can do that in Cuba too, by the way. Look up Michael Moore's Sicko. Yeah, I know Michael Moore, but it was a fun documentary with one part there where George W. Bush, where Fidel Castro was on fire and had devil horns or something like that. Anyway, basic medicine, like basic dentistry, a basic topical tooth cleaning, fluoride, that's available. Getting a Band-Aid, getting an aspirin, getting a checkup. You have headaches or something, so you go into the doctor and they check your blood pressure. Those things are really great under socialized medicine. Why do you think so many Canadians go to the United States for more drastic care? Because if you're capable of paying a bit more, you're capable of getting much faster and much better medical quality. The UK has a similar hybrid system, although it's more socialized than the United States. And so therefore, you end up with 2-3 year waiting lists. If you just need an aspirin, that's fine. If you need something that ultimately you don't need to go to the doctor for, generally speaking, if you brush and you floss and so forth on your own, you don't really need to see the fucking dentist every month now, do you? If you try to take care of yourself, you probably don't have enough symptoms and conditions to need to go to the doctor twice a year or something like that. But if there's something catastrophic going on, a more capitalistic system can compensate. This is something, of course, is life-threatening or it's disfiguring or something like that. Socialized medicine will never be able to compensate for such things. It will always fall short, just by its design, just by its nature. So while the U.S. system is better than the British system, and ironically, the Dutch system is better than the U.S. system. By the way, it is pay-in. It is not socialized medicine. The more capitalistic that you get, the more people will fall through the cracks on basic care, but the more people will be saved from actual, genuine, life-threatening conditions, etc. This is effectively life-threatening. 5-year-old severe asthma can barely eat because, keeps coughing and shit like that. Well, I think that there's a solution. The problem is you're going to have to wait a while. By the way, who's ahead of her in line? Dick Cheney? How many hearts have been in his chest? How many lines did he jump? And that's under the U.S. system that's more efficient. The UK has some fucking problems with its medical infrastructure. I'm not going to laugh at people suffering because I'm not ghoulish, but I will laugh at the medical system itself because it deserves nothing but derision and laughter. Anyway, I'm going to go offline now. I will be back live tomorrow, of course, with more news. Just wanted to cover some topics because it's fun. Also, it's too hot to fucking keep my shirt on, so I am strip it off the second that I end this live stream. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you to the 4,000 people who watched live. That's about all. Peace out.